But Paul and his wife Andrea were the ones seated right next to Mrs. Clinton. In fact, Paul's home videos picked up Mrs. Clinton, saying she had stopped using email messages because of all the investigations she had been through.
I've been investigating all that, you know, why?
Right, yeah.
My God, why would I ever want to do email?
No,
can you imagine?
No. Paul says he put up $30,000 to be the co-host of the lunch. And in total, he estimates he has canceled checks and other documents showing more than $1.5 million in direct and so-called in-kind contributions to support the Hillary campaign last year. Yet only about $500,000 of that appears in the federal election records filed for her campaign, attributed to the various companies Paul's connected with. Democratic officials say they simply reported what Paul told them, which Paul says is not true.
They knew I stayed there overnight, and when he came back, he said to me that the president was agreeable.
Levin acknowledges soliciting money from Paul, but says Paul is lying about any deal, and that he never talked to the president about Paul.
Isn't it possible you were just being played for a sucker?
It's possible, except that I think their first intention was, let's make a deal and let's get the money.
Just remember what I told you the day I set you free. Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no.
And in short order, Peter Paul was writing checks to pay for what would be the political blowout party of the year.
Ain't no mountain high enough.
Billed as Hollywood's farewell to Bill Clinton.
I paid the bill.
We are making things everywhere here.
I paid Wolfgang Puck $68,000 to cater the dinner.
No matter how hard I try.
I paid for Cher's jet, I think it was $30,000. I paid for the tents, the invitations. There were a lot of things to pay for.
Come to my window.
Melissa Etheridge sang. Whoopi Goldberg told jokes.
I spent time at the White House inside. Nobody checked my bag when I left.
And Shirley MacLaine brought the president to tears.
That a really, really human leader is a true servant of humanity.
The night brought in a huge windfall for the Hillary campaign.
We'd like to dedicate this to Mrs. Clinton tonight. God bless. I'm going to get you to move, I promise.
Thanks in large part to the checkbook of Peter Paul, who made sure fundraiser Jim Levin was on one side of him and the Clinton family on the other.
You think they go to the mechanic and down the street and invite him to a fundraiser to sit next to these people? I mean, the whole purpose of these fundraisers is to sell access.
And seated right behind the Clintons was a Japanese businessman by the name of Tendo Odo, an associate of Paul's, who gave Paul $27,000 to attend the fundraiser. Citizens of foreign countries are prohibited from giving money to federal campaigns.
You told Mrs. Clinton's staff you had $27,000
Right.
from a Japanese citizen.
Right.
A picture that night shows Odo being escorted into the concert by Paul and the Clinton staff. Odo told 2020 he was unaware the $27,000 sent to Paul could be considered an illegal contribution.
Did anybody ever tell you you must return that? You can't take money from a...
No one ever told me anything about the money. And ultimately, they promised to invite Mr. Odo to the last state dinner at the White House.
And sure enough, 2 months later, there was Odo attending the state dinner for the Prime Minister of India. But for all his efforts, Paul's scheme fell apart just a few days after the big party, when a story broke about his criminal record in the Washington Post. Paul says the Clinton staff quickly distanced itself from him and returned a small $2,000 check he had given earlier in the year.
What they said was, oh, who? Peter Paul? Oh, yeah, I think he was a producer of the event. He gave the $2,000, we forgot about it, but we're sending it back. We wouldn't take any money from him. What an absurdity. Everybody knew.
But Paul says the Clinton staff told him to go along with the story, and he did.
Well, I had no choice. I mean, if you just pay $2 million to have a relationship with some people, you're not going to turn around and call them liars in the Washington Post.
Especially someone who wants a pardon. Paul says once his criminal record was in the papers, he decided he would try to push for a pardon from the president. Between was Ed Rendell, the chairman of the Democratic Party, with whom he and his wife Andrea had become friendly.
And he said, yes, he knew about it, he was working on it.
In a statement to 2020, Rendell said Paul's allegations are completely and utterly false, that he never spoke to Paul about a contribution or a pardon.
He said, well, I know what you're talking about, and that's being worked on. Ed called me a couple of weeks later and hit me up for some money for the National Constitution Center.
So what did you say to that request?
Well, I said to him, come back to me when you can give me some answers about the, what I'm interested in.
And then?
That was it. Didn't get anything. And they abandoned me.
And now Paul has new criminal charges to worry about. Earlier this year, he moved his family to Brazil and has since been indicted on federal stock fraud charges, which he denies, but has yet to return to face in court.
Senator Brian Ross from ABC 2020. How are you?
Last week in New York, Senator Clinton would not even say if she recalled meeting Peter Paul. She said she didn't want to talk about his allegations because his lawsuit is being brought by the top man of a group called Judicial Watch, which has brought numerous lawsuits before against the Clintons and members of their administration.
And I'm just not going to comment on it. It is not anything that I'm going to have anything to say about. It'll just work its way out as all of his frivolous lawsuits do.
Would you recall Mr. Paul? Do you recall working with him at all?
If the judge allows it, Paul says he will call as witnesses every one of the A-list stars he invited to the big party to see what they recalled. For a lot of reasons, for a lot of people, it may truly be a night to remember.